Welcome to the Hearty Potato Podcast. I'm your host, Michaelin. Hi, Hearties. Welcome to the very first episode of the Hearty Potato Podcast. I am so excited to share this with you all. This is my very first podcast. I've never done one before, as you can probably already tell. Today's episode, our first episode, we are going to talk about Season 13, Episode 1. As I am recording this is Saturday. Tomorrow, Sunday, will air Episode 2, which looks really good, by the way. I cannot wait to unpack that episode. Anyway, we're going to talk about last week's episode, and we are just going to dive right on in, and I'm going to tell you or share with you all my thoughts. I could talk about every last scene because I loved this whole episode. It was so packed. It was the strongest premiere I have ever seen of any of the seasons. That's just my opinion. This episode really set up everything for the season, and I think, Joy wrote this, and I think she just did a fantastic job. There wasn't anything I really didn't like about this episode. It was perfect. But I don't have a whole lot of time to unpack every last single scene, so I'm going to highlight my favorite scenes, the scenes that I had, thoughts on. I do want to talk about the Lee and Rosemary scenes that we saw in episode 1. Something that I noticed that stuck out to me with all these scenes is Goldie is with them in most of these scenes that they're together in. Goldie is with them. And I just thought that was so sweet. It's very, very family oriented. They're both working parents, but they're bringing their daughter to work with them, and she's just going along with their day, and doesn't say a word. She's got her cute little teddy bear, and I thought that was so cute. Also, Rosemary mentions the playhouse. I am interested in knowing more about that. I think that comes up if I read in a description of another episode later. I think that comes up again. So I'm curious to know more about that. But one of my favorite scenes, the Cape Fullerton scenes at the Thornton boarding house. We get to see a little sneak peek into what the Thornton and the Grant summer was like at Charlotte's boarding house. Nathan's fixing something, and they both mention how she had a to-do list for him, which I thought was funny. Of course she did. We meet someone new, Skeet, and he was just in one scene, but I feel like I know Skeet already. Like, I think everyone has met an elderly man who tells you a bunch of stories of, either the old days or, their family, and Allie, typical teenager. Oh yeah, he's telling me stories. How fun. But I thought Skeet was he was just in one scene, but it was a great addition. And obviously he plays a bigger role because we know what happens in the end with like his nephew and the plane. But I just felt like I knew Skeet already. Like, Skeet should move to Hope Valley because he would fit right in. Like, I don't know. I felt like he was right at home in the show. I feel like I knew him. Anyway, and we find out, the clinic, there's been a stall. They're going to have to stay. They can only come over the weekend. And Elizabeth's like, well, maybe we don't have to go. And it's like, no, that's not the deal. The deal is we do this together. And then we get to see Charlotte. I have been waiting for Charlotte Thornton to come back. I am so excited that she is back. Brooke Shields is fantastic. And I love the interaction between her and Nathan. I hope we get to see more of that. I feel like maybe we'll get more flashbacks. I hope we get flashbacks to more of their time at her boarding house, because I feel like we didn't get to see enough of that. I want to see flashbacks. I want to see where she first meets Nathan. I feel like that would be interesting. Anyway, her whole little good farewell speech to Nathan was beautiful. And but my favorite of it was when she said, "You're as good of a man as my son was in your own way." Like, that's a big thing to say. Like, that's a huge deal for her to say that. And it's something that Nathan needed to hear because of the guilt that he carries. Like, he needed to hear that from Jack's mom. I just thought that was so poignant. And yeah, it was great. And she says, how what a wonderful father little Jack will have. And he's like, well, I haven't proposed. And we're like, oh, we know. Okay, we know. Hopefully, we get to see that this season. I hope so. And I love how Charlotte's like, gives him a hug, but then whispers in his ear, don't mess this up. And that probably scared the heck out of Nathan. Charlotte is very intimidating. One of my favorite scenes is, well, they're all my favorite, but one of my favorite scenes when they're back in Hope Valley and Oliver and Nathan realize that they both grew mustaches over the summer. That was so funny. And Nathan, Nathan doesn't look like he is pleased with it. And honestly, Oliver didn't. It was very subtle, but honestly, Oliver didn't look pleased either. He looked like he was ever so slightly annoyed that they both grew a mustache. And Nathan points out, that's a nice mustache. And, Oliver's like, oh, sir, I didn't know that I just thought that was so funny. My other favorite scene, the traffic light scene where, Lucas is come home and he's back too. And he's waving at Edie. And he runs the red light. The first traffic violation was done by, of course, Lucas. Not only Lucas, but like the governor. And Nathan was right there, saw the whole thing. And the look on his face, that smirk, that was too much. It was so funny. And their whole interaction, that whole scene was great. That whole interaction, those two do friendly banter really well. A little bit snarky. They do it really well. It was hilarious. And Nathan, the way he's like, it's almost like the smirk on his face was almost like, gotcha, this is going to be so much fun. And also, I know why Lucas got distracted. And it's like Nathan is like, oh, good material. I can make fun of Lucas. Anyway, and he's like, looks like you were distracted. I also love this scene because these two are able to, have a jokingly interaction, and we're done with the triangle, so there's no they can banter without tension, like that same hard tension. So I hope we see more of that this season, of them moving forward. I don't know if that would be like friends, but can now fully be like free to be friendly with each other and still like be snarky and have fun. I just really loved that interaction. Also, I loved I loved the fact that Nathan thanked Lucas. He was ribbing him, but at the same time he's like, also, thank you for helping with the clinic. And also Lucas was like, is this whole ticket thing, like, this is all a show, right? And Nathan's like, well, yeah. I mean, technically, yeah, Lucas did violate a traffic law, but, at the end of the day, he was just messing with Lucas. But I also love when Lucas was like, someone should talk to the governor about these fines. Another favorite scene, the barn scene, and we see Newton reunited with Nathan, and Elizabeth witnesses that. And, she tells him how good it was that, to see him back, in his element. And then she gets sad and she's talking about missing the start of the school year. And Nathan is, what he does best, trying to comfort her and be there for her. And he says, and this is my favorite line, it can be hard to get a taste of home and not be there quite yet. And I feel like this works on a lot of different levels. I think it means more than, for her. He's not just talking about her. I feel like he's also talking about him. He spent all summer with them, with the three people that mean the most in the world to him. He got a taste of home too. He got a taste of, what their family could be like. And while they were at the boarding house, he got a taste of home, and he's not quite there yet. They're not an official family yet. They're not quite there yet. So I felt like that's also what that meant as well. I could be wrong. That's how I took it too. But that scene is so fraught with meaning for me. It was beautiful. I love that Christopher is back. And also I realized too that when Christopher marries Lee's niece, which I forgot that was Lee's niece for a minute, Rachel, Henry will be kind of related to the Coulters. And also, Henry is Goldie's grandfather, so I'm hoping that we get to see an interaction with them, with Goldie and Henry. We haven't seen one in a long time, since Goldie was a baby. Also, and that's one of my wishes for season 13. It's on my wish list. If you follow me on my Instagram, I talk about that. I forget what number wish that is, but it is on my wish list. So we'll see if that happens. Anyway, I'm so glad that Christopher is back in Hope Valley. I hope we get to see more of him. It would also be great if we get to see Rachel again too. We'll see. Lucas and Edie scenes, strong, good. I really liked them. I cannot wait to see how that story unfolds. I also love how Edie is talking to Florence and Molly, and everyone has accepted her into the town. The ladies have accepted her. I just think that that's really sweet. It was beautiful to see that Edie is a part of, Hope Valley now. She's a fixture. We haven't seen, I don't believe, an interaction with Elizabeth and Edie. I hope we get to see that this season. Another favorite scene with Elizabeth and Allie. She's reading her introduction for the brochure for the park to Elizabeth. It's a beautiful scene shot with the church. I love any scene with the church in the background. It's always it's such a beautiful piece of land. Anyway, that whole scene, that whole dialogue, not only is it cinematically beautiful, but the dialogue is just amazing. Very mother-daughter moment. And also Elizabeth realizes, that Allie feels inspired when she's in Hope Valley. She said she couldn't write the intro until she came here. And Elizabeth, again, just feels bad about Allie having to not be here. And then that's where we have the scene, where she tells Nathan, you guys should just stay here. Not just for Allie, but also like for Nathan. She knows that he belongs here. She says that. And he's like, what are you talking about? No, we're all going to go. She tells him it's enough sacrifice. And it's like she hasn't quite learned yet. Nathan has said this several times. Where you go, I go. I belong wherever you are. I'm home. Like, not in those exact words per se, but that's what it means. Location is not important to him. As long as he has Elizabeth, Jack, and Allie, he's where he belongs, and he's fine with that. And she still thinks it's a sacrifice for him to be gone. She still hasn't yet learned that Nathan just sees it differently than she does. And also, he's like, you want to be alone? And she's like, it doesn't matter what I want. And we know where we've heard that before in season 10 when he confronts her about moving to Capital City with Lucas. If he won the governorship, she's like, it doesn't matter what I want. And you just see, as Nathan says, the resignation, the acceptance, the sadness in her eyes of, this isn't my life. I'm alone. I deal with things alone. That's just how it is. I always have to deal with everything alone. She hasn't yet learned she doesn't have to do that anymore. It was such a sad, heartbreaking, but beautiful scene at the same time. And then we see, Nathan's back. The scene ends with Nathan's back turned, and then the next scene starts with his back turned again, and he's in an office. And at first I thought he was talking to Bill, and then I see Rosemary. And we have a nice scene between those two. We don't get to see too much interaction with them before, and we're starting to see more scenes with them, and I'm here for it. I just loved how he went to Rosemary, for advice and help to deal with, what are we going to do about Elizabeth? And, she's like, she's been through a lot. And he's like, I know. And she said, I don't think we can really understand. She lost her little boy, we can't really understand what that is like for her. And then he's like, well, I can't, fly in a magic carpet for the inspector to get here. And then he says that as she's quoting Lewis Carroll, I've dreamed, or I thought of 6 impossible things before breakfast or something like that. And then it dawns on him what he could do about that. And the phone call to Charlotte does another funny scene. And I feel like everyone feels that way. What are you doing calling me at 10 p.m. at night? Oh, and you want me to wake Skeet too. I just thought that was a funny little scene. Oh, and the Goldie Park scene with little Goldie and Lee and Rosemary and Henry trying to take pictures, and they're, talking, and he keeps having to be like, look, guys, we're trying to take pictures here. I just thought that was a cute, funny little scene. I just love the Coulters. And my favorite little Goldie moment was probably everyone else's favorite little Goldie moment for this episode, her pointing to the plane. It was so cute. Ellie is adorable. Goldie just really steals all those little scenes without one word. She is just too cute. And then we see the plane and the pilot. I hope we get to see more of the pilot. Quick side note, I don't know if anyone has thought of this. I'm curious, are we going to see more of the pilot? And also, is someone else going to learn to fly? Maybe Nathan wants to learn to pilot a plane. That would be interesting. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I hope we get to see more of the pilot. More of the plane. The plane, another sign of the 20s. And just real quick, to talk about the signs of the times, the signs of the 20s, we have the plane. We have the first freezer. Not just refrigerator, but it's freezer. That was a big deal. Traffic lights. Elizabeth's new fashions. That was interesting to see. Oh yeah, Elizabeth's hat, by the way. I love the hats. Barbara is so amazing at costumes. And I love hats. We haven't seen hats, I think, on Elizabeth since season 1, I want to say. Elizabeth hasn't worn many hats, so I'm excited. I hope we get to see her more in hats because she looks great in hats. I love hats. I cannot wear hats. I don't look good in hats, but I love them on other people. So I hope we get to see more. And 1920 hats are a particular favorite of mine. I love the little hats of the 20s. So I hope we get to see more of that. Anyway, back to the pilot. And oh yeah, the health inspector. And oh yeah, Ned. I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but Ned knowing exactly what kind of plane that was, and he's, you just see his head in between Elizabeth and Nathan in the back there. That was too much. Of course, Ned knows the details of the plane, just like he knew all about the coins last season. That was so funny. I just love how Ned knows the details of all those things. Anyway, the inspection gets passed, or the clinic passes inspection. They're the first tier 1 insulin clinic in the territory. That is really big. And I love Allie's little joyful face when she finds out they're staying. I think she reacted the way we all felt. Like, yay, you're staying. And Elizabeth is just amazed that Nathan pulled this off. We haven't seen huge grand gesture. I'm not saying that right. Anyway, we hadn't seen Nathan pull off like a huge grand gesture. Well, obviously, actually, yes, we have. When he and Allie took off to Cape Fullerton, there was one. But this is another one of him. He saves the day. He's the Mountie. He's going to save the day. He saves the day in an amazing way. And she's like, it's a miracle. And I love this. Such another sweet, tender scene. He's like, I'm just happy to see that light again. It's such a sweet moment. And then we have, everyone's excited about the plane. The Grants and the Thorns don't have to leave. The kids are off in the park doing their thing. And then, of course, we know how the episode ends. It goes up in smoke. And then we see the men hurry off and take off into the woods. And then I guess we're going to find out what happens tomorrow. Anyway, episode 1, like I said, really strong. It was an amazing job. Everyone just killed it. It was amazing. Every last person did just an amazing job. I cannot wait to see tomorrow's episode. It's going to be so good. Anyway, those are my thoughts on episode 1. I didn't talk about every scene. I probably missed some scenes that I really liked, but I know I talked about my top favorite ones. So yeah, this is the first episode of the Hearty Potato Podcast. Thank you for listening, and you can find me on Instagram at the Hearty Potato. Bye, Hearties.